This is Nicole Campbell with Shire Kids, a literacy program with the Imagination Library. And thank you for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation. So thank you all, as Sarah mentioned. So I started Shire Kids, and we run Dolly Parton's Imagination Library for all of Bennington County and for the town of Danby. We started, and for those of you that aren't familiar with the program, the Imagination Library is a book gifting program that sends a new age-appropriate book to children every month from birth or whenever they enroll until their 5th birthday. So for children that are enrolled at birth, they'll have a home library of 60 books before entering kindergarten. It was started by Dolly in Tennessee in 1995 and expanded in counties around Tennessee and eventually to the whole state. And it was about 10 years later that the program was formatted in a way that it can be replicated in any town or community around the country. The issue is there needs to be a local nonprofit that runs the program that is considered the local affiliate that then runs their own local program, obviously with the support of the Dolly Parton Foundation, where they manage the book orders and the book shipping. But your local nonprofit manages all of the data management, the enrollment, and fundraising, because we do pay for the books that go out to all the children within our program. So speaking of the children, we launched in July of 2019. So we're just over around right about a year and a half right now. And we have enrolled over 1,000 children in Bennington County since we started. Our active program is right around 890 right now. So that means about 150 kids have graduated out of the program. They turned 5 over this last year and a half since they enrolled, and a handful moved away. So moving away from the program. But so it's been a really exciting and busy first year and a half. My goal was to enroll 400 children in that first year, and we got there in about 2 months. So we were really excited about that and have just been very actively fundraising so we can support the very rapid growth. And we do expect to top between 1,000 and 1,200 children consistently actively enrolled. So like I said, right now we're at around 890 that are actively enrolled. And so in this next year, we plan to be in that 1,000 to 1,200 range. I'm trying to figure out exactly where we'll settle. Just for reference, 2017 census data that I was working with when I first launched showed that there were about 1,600 children in Bennington County under age 5. So that's, if we have around 1,000 to 1,200 enrolled at any given moment, that would be around like a 60 to 70% enrollment rate, which would be really exciting. Talking to other programs, they say to anticipate maybe 20% in your first year and maybe working towards 50% 4 or 5 years on. But we've had an amazing response with an enrollment network that I put together kind of early on. Pediatricians, speech therapists, and children's integrated services have been super supportive of the program. They work direct care with families with small children every day, and they're the ones that are talking about this program and encouraging families to enroll. About the books, the 2021 book list was just released. That's one of the graphics that I can share. Here we go. So this shows some of the books that are part of this program. So a lot of people ask me like, well, what books do they receive? Some of them are really well-known, super popular books like like The Snowy Day or the Llama Llama books are really popular. Some recent books that have been written recently but have won awards like The Rabbit Listened or Last Stop on Market Street. So a lot of people like to see this list just so they can get a sense of the type of books that do go out. And you can see here how it is broken down, that they are age appropriate by year. So the children are put into a group based on the year that they're born, and then all those children will receive the same book every month for throughout the year. And it grows with them. So, you know, the children born in 2020 are receiving baby books and, you know, board books and colors and textures and high contrast. And then obviously it moves on to the fiction and nonfiction and more diverse storylines as the children get older. Great representation of diversity and socioeconomic differences, challenges, emotional development stories. So it's really a very well curated group of books that are selected by what's called the Blue Ribbon Book Committee, and that's the Dolly Parton Foundation puts that together, and it's, you know, a combination of child psychologists and teachers and parents and academics and authors, and so it's really great. A lot of good input goes into selecting the books. Just to touch on that, so I mentioned, you know, all the children that were born in the same year will receive the same book. So there is no restriction on children enrolling in the program. If you live in Bennington County and you're under 5 years old, you can enroll in this program. There's no income restriction. And the idea behind that is that it is intended to create this shared experience among all the children in the community, in that age group, that they're all receiving this same book every month. And that's something that I've found is just so exciting for the kids. You know, one time I was in the preschool that my son goes to, I sub there occasionally. And so one time I was in and I brought in one of the books that all the 4-year-olds had received the month before. And I was like, oh guys, I'm going to read this book to you. And one of them was like, I have that book. And another child was like, I have that book. And they were like, oh my God, we all have this book. And it's this really exciting kind of moment. And this sense of ownership of the books, and then also pride and knowing the story already is just so fun to see. So, you know, back to that, it's really this idea of, you know, a rising tide raises all boats. So it's not singling out the children whose parents maybe can't afford books or just don't buy them books, that they're the only ones getting these free books from Dolly Parton, right? Or from Shire Kids. It's all the children are receiving these books. Another graphic that I want to share. So are you seeing this as I'm switching? Okay. All right. So this is a summary. Oh, okay. So this is just a summary, kind of an infographic of kind of where we are right now. But what I really wanted to show you was our report to donors, which did show all of the towns that we serve, and then the current number of children that we're serving in each town. And this is about a month and a half old now, because I wrote this at the beginning of December, but I did these tallies are from our December numbers. So I think people like to see that, you know, so we are right around 890 enrolled children, and we have sent out over 10,000 books in that year and a half since we first started. And I just ran numbers this morning, and just to give you all an update, for Bennington and North Bennington, we're actually now at 427 currently enrolled children, and there are 58 additional children that we served over the last year and a half, but that graduated from the program. So 58 that graduated. Okay. Some of you mentioned the little free libraries earlier, and that's something that, so Shire Kids, you know, our primary program is that we do run the Imagination Library, and that's you know, what I fundraise for, because that's our primary cost all the time. But some other programs that we are involved in is we, right before COVID hit, we held our first free community book swap, which was, you know, I received donations from libraries, the bookstore, local individuals, tons of books. And this is children's books up through young adults. So it wasn't just for that baby age. And the reason, what made me think of this is, we're sending a lot of books out into the community. And what a few donors asked me was, what if the families don't read that book anymore? They don't want all the books that are coming to them. How can we continue to make good on these books, like keep them in use? And so community book swaps was what I had thought of. And this was something that I participated in. Before I moved to Vermont, I lived in Washington, D.C. and our local moms group there, we would do these twice a year we do book swaps, and twice a year we do clothing swaps. And it was just donate whatever you don't need anymore and take whatever you need, no cost associated at all. And so that's what we did. So so we held a book swap where we had tons of books laid out, and people just came and took as many as they wanted. And it was really exciting to see, especially the children just like filling up boxes of books. And the parents had to be like, okay, enough, like stop. But I thought that was just really fun to see. So that's definitely something we plan on resuming again when we're able. I actually have boxes of books that people have donated as they've been cleaning out their own houses while we're all in quarantine, right? So I've got lots ready to go for these book swaps. Little free libraries, there are two near where I live up in Dorset. There's one in Rupert and then one at the Dorset School. And I also stock those pretty regularly. I know the John G. McCullough Library in North Bennington stocks a lot of the little free libraries around that area. So I've messaged with them a handful of times, just being like, I'm happy to stop by some of them. Because I have books that I always keep in my car, so that whenever I am by one, I can load those too. Another area of programming that we're looking to expand, there he goes, is to do reading and story time. So I mentioned, reading that book to the 4-year-olds in my son's preschool one day. That's something that we're looking to establish in each of the towns that we serve. Is in the preschools or in the libraries, have Imagination Library Reading Day, and maybe read 2 or 3 of the books that have gone out within the last month or so, so that the parents can bring the children knowing that it's going to be a book that they just got at home. And so working with the libraries to establish that. This is something that I love hearing how interested you all are in participating and volunteering in hands-on programming, because it's something that I'd like to establish a network of, a handful of people who want to run and handle these story times in, say, the 2 Bennington libraries, or in Pownell, or in Arlington, in Manchester, in Dorset, in Shaftesbury. Have a Shire Kids volunteer or partner to run those programs in their local community. Something I'd put together programming sheets for, which is something I've started doing, and then be able to share that with the volunteer who would then implement it in their local preschool and library. So that is all in the works for the upcoming year, and some exciting kind of extensions of what we've already been doing this past year.
2 questions. One, are you doing any of this where we can't be face-to-face right now? I know everybody's sick of Zoom, but to me, it's better than nothing with the kids. And then I'm pretty interested, because I live in Pownell. My downside is that I'm usually not here for half a year in this country. So again, I'm interested, but probably if you could answer the first question first, that would be great.
Thank you. That's great to hear that you do live in Pownell. And so far I've done some story time on our Instagram pages, both with recorded and then some Instagram live readings of the stories. And I've done a handful of them on my own and some with my 4-year-old or my 7-year-old, but not, I haven't done like a Zoom story time. I know I've been in touch with a lot of the libraries that are conducting story times, and I'm actually scheduled to sub in for one of the librarians who normally does a children's story time in a few weeks, but I'm not hosting like separate Shire Kids ones just yet. But that is something that I am planning on starting going forward, is just with our newsletter, is gathering interest for doing that over Zoom. But, you know, while we're, you know, do an imagination library focused story time over Zoom through Shire Kids, you know, even though we can't get started with them in person yet.
Yeah, I'd be interested in, I don't know if you could share with us your 2 pieces or your newsletter or whatever with Mike, and he could send us whatever links we need.
Yeah, certainly. So, right, that was like that infographic and the report to donors and the book list. I'm happy to share. Those are just PDFs. And then, yeah, our most recent newsletter to families was in December. And then I have another one coming up at the end of the year. And yeah, I'm happy to, you know, add you to our, so that you'll receive those and see those as they come out.
I'll just add that my kids are almost 31 and 32. And I still remember when they were in 2nd grade, I wanted to change my job and go teach. 2nd graders are so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, they're at a fun age right now.
Mary?
Yes, I was gonna just, Nicole, one of the things that we did way back when we were meeting in person is our club had what we call a suitcase program. And we'd have a big old suitcase. And when people would come into the meeting and make a donation of a physical thing, you know, it could have been socks for the homeless, food, it was a number of things. But one that we did, again, thinking of Sally Sugarman, she always wanted to do literacy programs, is we collected books for the 1,000 books before kindergarten, I think it was. And we took them to the McCullough Library, who put together bags and did that. I'm guessing you're aware of this program, and I'm wondering whether your returned books go into something like that.
So, I mean, the 1,000 books before kindergarten is a great program. I think, you know, these two kind of work hand in hand. I mean, the 1,000 books is really encouraging, obviously, consistent reading and going to the library and getting comfortable with going to the library, and then, you know, the Imagination Library is about having books in your home that you keep and like ownership of books. So I think they both certainly support one another. No, you know, any books that I've had donated to us have gone to either that book swap that we held, the little free libraries, or there are a handful of teachers in the Manchester area that I've, you know, just shared like pictures of the boxes I have, and they've just said, great, I'd love to offer these to our students. So I've gotten them out that way. And I know like the Manchester Library just started the 1,000 books from before kindergarten program as well. I know Arlington has had it in place for a long time. I think the way that program works is there isn't a set list of books that you have to read. I think it's a set number. So it's not necessarily that they need 1,000 titles, let's say. But I'd love to talk to, you know, one of those program administrators if there is a need for books, you know, that I could supply. I'd be more than happy to. I mean, like I said, like when I have books sitting in boxes in my office upstairs, I feel like itchy, like someone needs to have these, you know, like,
well, I just thought of that because specifically used books, as long as there's not crayon on every page, used books were perfectly acceptable for that program.
Okay, that is great to know. Is
and check with the McCullough Library.
Is it Jenny?
Because I know they spearhead it along with the Bennington Library around here.
Okay.
Yeah, Nicole, my wife is actually the library director at the McCullough Library, Jenny. And I mentioned speaking today, and she said, have Nicole give me a call because she definitely wants to talk with you more about those things. McCullough Library has also done Facebook Live story time. And one of the things that they had to work with was there's some kids books where the authors have said, okay, you can do story time without violating copyright.
Right.
And some publishing companies are really monitoring what Storytime Onlines are doing. And if you are reading copyrighted material, they'll come after you. So,
Yeah.
I think Jenny might be able to help with a list of authors who've said, okay, I think Mo Willems, for example, said it's okay, read my stories. Others have not fallen into that category. So I think you might be able to help out with that as well.
Yeah. Yes, that came up a month or so after I started reading books. I was like, whoa, okay. So the Dolly Parton Foundation has created a release form that any books that are within the Dolly Parton Imagination Library are books that we as the affiliates can read aloud and share on our social media. I do have I actually should check on that because I know it was a dated release form that I had to sign. And so I can't even think of when it expired because maybe it expired now and I should check on that again. Same thing with story walks. That was something that we sponsored with the Southern Vermont Arts Center, was some story walk books, but same thing, you have to have permission before you use a book for a story walk. And so we went through that. That was similar steps, similar releases. So I'm going to say
how can Rotary help with all this? I mean, I'm sure we're all kind of wondering that.
So and you know, I love how interested you all are in volunteering and helping to man these programs. And that's something that I'm very excited about because I don't have a lot of other volunteers or people that have come forward for that. Right now, to operate Shire Kids, we do have a hefty invoice every month to supply the Imagination Library books to the children. So going back to how the affiliate pays for the books, whereas the Dolly Parton Foundation manages the production and the mailing of it, they also manage the negotiation of a very reduced price for each book. So, you know, the titles that are going out are books you'd buy at the bookstore for $10 to $15 per book. And we pay about $2 to $2.45 per book. So that comes to about $25 per child per year that's enrolled in the program. So we're operating right now with 890 children involved. We're working with about a $22,000 to $23,000 budget every year. And so that's what I'm continually fundraising for. Writing grants primarily, that's how we sustained the program for that first year. And now, you know, in these last few months, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware, the grant landscape has significantly shifted, and we've not been as successful at all. We've been very unsuccessful in getting grants more recently. So I'm trying to diversify where we're securing funding from. So we are appealing to the towns that we serve for funding. We're appealing to some individuals. Of course, small businesses was going to be a big push that I was going to. It's just designed a marketing campaign in about January, February of last year, and had a bunch of meetings scheduled to start meeting with businesses in, you know, February and March to ask them for support. But of course, that all got put on hold when they were trying to just maintain their own survival strategies. So I have not gone to many of our local businesses just yet. There are some that we are going to start appealing to, like for example, real estate agencies that have been doing really well recently. And so our new programs that we're starting here for 2021 is we are seeking 12 entities, you know, businesses or individuals or civic communities to sponsor Shire Kids readers for a month. So we are seeking $1,000 donation from 12 entities to symbolically adopt a month for Shire Kids readers. And so that's something that we've just started. I've just put together some of the literature on it. And so I'd be happy to share that with you as well. And something that, you know, I'm hoping you might consider as a monetary support of Shire Kids or of local readers. I mean, I'm happy to share with you again the numbers, but truly by far the greatest concentration of children that Shire Kids supports is in the town of Bennington and North Bennington. They constitute over half of our program. And so we really would love to have support locally from the town of Bennington, in some capacity. And, whether it's, I'd love for the Rotary support. I did appeal to the town to get on the ballot for town meeting day, and unfortunately we were not accepted to get onto the ballot. And the reason for that is because there's a very strict, they'll only allow a social service agency to request support or funding from the town, and we didn't qualify for that. So unfortunately we won't be able to get any support from the town, but I am looking for support from Bennington. Like I said, I'm in Dorset. I know the communities here in Dorset and Manchester, and I'm really trying to connect with Bennington more. One of our board members lives in Shaftesbury, and she is the director of Children's Integrated Services for Bennington area. And so she's been really helpful, but really trying to connect more with Bennington, where so much of the children and so much of where our dollars go to is concentrated.
So, when a child enrolls, do they enroll for 5 years, or do they enroll for each year individually? And how much does that cost?
They enroll and are enrolled until they turn 5. So there's no re-enrollment necessary. Whenever a child enrolls, whether it's at birth or when they're 2.5 or 4 years old, they're just automatically in the program receiving a book every month until their 5th birthday, which is when they automatically receive the graduation book. The way that the families, again, I just want to make sure this is clear to everyone, there's no cost to the families. The families just enroll for a free book. They just start receiving these free books. There's no cost there. The way it works for Shire Kids is we pay monthly based on exactly how many books go out that month. So,
sorry, I meant what is the cost to sponsor for 5 years?
So for one child for 5 years is $125. So for a child who is enrolled at birth, it's $125 for them to be in the program there for the whole life of the program. So I mentioned that before. So it's $25 per child per year. And that's, something that I'm starting to put together as well as, another way to support Shire Kids is to adopt a reader, or adopt 12 readers. The sponsorship of $25 per month would support 12 readers in your community. We do, there is like a recurring donation on our sponsorship page. So that's another way we could do it. Or, some businesses have asked like, okay, well, I want to sponsor the 20 children in Danby, in the town of Danby. So, they'll symbolically sponsor those 22 children that are currently enrolled there with a donation of, let's see, 22 times 25. So I think it's around 500 or so, 550. So, I like the adopt a reader. I know is a way to feel like you're really supporting that child's love of literacy, getting them engaged with books, encouraging that child. If you adopt a reader for a year for $25, that'll give 12 books to that child that they'll have in their home that they can read every day. And, I think that's a important measure of what you're donating to your child.
Well, you mentioned Suitcase project, and one of the things we could think about is doing a virtual Suitcase project for February, in which people could donate what they would have donated in a suitcase online through equivalent amount of money through our own PayPal site. And so I mean, Rotary as an organization has donated to certain causes in the past, but also we appeal to our individual members. Our individual members have, resources that are certainly beyond what we as an organization do. So, I mean, that's certainly something we could consider. I mean, I think we have a board meeting coming up pretty soon. And we can definitely, talk about that.
Great.